Hello students, welcome to the EPG Pathshala. I am Professor Ipshita Bansal from BPS Women's University Sonipat. Today I am going to talk about the module Principles of Communication from paper Business Communication. By the end of this module, the students will be able to understand various principles of communication, how messages can be made more effective, and guidelines to be followed for sending a message. It seems so simple. Say what you mean, but it is not always so simple. Often, our intended message gets lost in the transmission in spite of our best intentions. Communication is much more than exchanging information. Communication at the workplace can be your best friend or your worst enemy. It's not how you are sending a message so that it is received and understood by receiver in the same way you intended. It is also how you listen to gain full understanding of what has been said and also to assure the person that he has been heard and understood. The good thing is we can learn how to communicate more effectively and clearly. And for effectiveness of communication, there are certain principles of both oral as well as written communication. These principles, if used, help the communicators to communicate even negative or complex messages without creating conflict or destroying trust. So, what are these principles of communication? For effective message, you need to apply certain communication principles. They all tie closely with the basic concepts of the communication process and are important for transmitting effective written and oral communications. Interestingly, 7 of them begin with the alphabet C and 4 with S. They are 7 C's: completeness, conciseness, consideration, concreteness, clarity, courtesy, and correctness. And now the 4 S's: shortness, simplicity, strength, and sincerity. All these principles are not mutually exclusive. In fact, they overlap in many of the factors influencing these principles. Now we discuss these principles in detail. 7 principles of effective communication, or the 7 C's of effective communications as they are called, are the following. First, completeness. Second, conciseness. Third, consideration. Fourth, concreteness. Fifth, clarity. Sixth, courtesy. And last, seventh, correctness. So the first principle of communication is completeness. Completeness means quantum of information needed for making a message complete. Business message is complete when it has all the necessary information which is required for the receiver of the message to act in a particular way. Considering that receivers differ in their mental filters as they are influenced by their backgrounds, viewpoints, needs, attitudes, status, and emotions, so the message should be complete in itself to minimize the possibility of different understanding of the same message by the different receivers. Completeness is important for following reasons. First, if the message is complete, then the probability of the desired response of the sender becomes very high without incurring extra cost or additional messages. Second, complete messages are helpful in developing and maintaining the goodwill of the organization. Third, since the message is complete and no information is extra or omitted, the chances of legal actions against the organization are minimized. So, the sender should ensure that communication messages which are sent are complete to avoid misunderstanding and delayed action. It is advisable that the message which is transmitted always has a logical conclusion so that receiver is clear about what has to be done. The message must be self-sufficient, that is, It must hold well on its own without support from other messages. Let's now consider some examples. For example, when factory supervisor gives instructions regarding production of goods to the workers, he must specify the exact size, shape, quality, and cost of the product. If there are any underlying assumptions to those instructions, then they must also be clearly stated. Another example we can take is that while answering a letter, all the questions raised in the letter must be replied. Or yet another example, supposing an assignment is given to you by your team leader. The assignment is important and its acceptability will be reflected in your appraisal. Unfortunately, maybe because of paucity of time, you are not able to put your best effort and present rigorous analysis of the situation. You provide data that lacks analytical thinking, and hence, based on that report, due to lack of completeness, the decision cannot be taken. Following points should be kept in mind for completeness of message. First, include all the essentials. Second, answer all questions asked. Third, give something extra when desirable. Fourth, check for the 5 W's, that is, who, what, where, when, and why. For example, to give instructions regarding the delivery of a consignment of ready-made garments to the dealer, one should consider 5 W's to draft the message. That is, who will deliver the consignment, what items will form the part of the consignment, when the consignment has to be delivered, where the consignment has to be delivered, why it needs to be delivered on time with efficiency. Second principle of communication is conciseness. Conciseness means the ability of conveying what you have to say in the minimum possible words with maximum possible meaning conveyed. That is, without sacrificing the other C qualities of the message, which we'll be talking about later. Conciseness is desired because a concise message saves time and expense for both sender and receiver. One should be brief and be able to say whatever one has to say. Conciseness preserves the focus of the message by eliminating redundant information. Quantum of information should be just right, neither too much nor too little. Business communication is founded on the principle of brevity. This principle applies not only to the length but to the contents of the message as well. So, while writing messages, always write short and meaningful sentences. Try to avoid technical jargons unless the message is being sent to a very specialized group. This principle of communication should be adopted for both internal as well as external communications. For drafting concise messages, try to observe the following suggestions. First is brevity and relevance. The quantum of information should be provided on the basis of needs and expectations of the receiver. Second, avoid jargons. Jargons refers to words that are subject specific. Avoid jargons as they confuse rather than increase understanding. Third, use audience relevant words. Words that are simple and relevant to the context should be used so that receiver can understand them and relate to them. Fourth, avoid unnecessary repetition. Repetition of some words, points, and examples make audience disinterested in the topic and make them boring, and consequently communication stops. Fifth suggestion, eliminate wordy expressions. It means that when the message can be conveyed in lesser words, don't burden the message with more words and long sentences. Sixth suggestion: only include relevant statements or material. If unnecessary words are included or irrelevant themes are added in the message, the real focus of the message is lost and the receivers end being confused. So, the desired behavior will not follow after transmission of the message. Let's understand this with the help of an example. Example of a wordy message. She was very expressive in absolutely rejecting the newly assigned responsibility. Concise message. She firmly rejected the new responsibility. So we can see that in the latter statement, the message is fully conveyed and also at the same time it is very concise. Let's take another example. Wordy message. If you can manage your time well, it can lead to a growth on the job front. Having control over the way you spend your time can help you do a lot of work during the day. The more effectively you manage your time, the higher your career will soar. So we can say that this is a very heavily worded message, and the listener or the reader, while receiving this message, will get confused as to what the sender is trying to say. So a concise message will be the following. All that is being said here is that time management skill is important for a successful career. So the message should be drafted as time management skill is important for a successful career. Third principle of communication is consideration. Consideration means that you should prepare every message by keeping recipient in mind and by putting yourself in his or her place. Before drafting the message, think about psychological and circumstantial situations, their limitations, aspirations, and likely reactions to the message, and accordingly design the message. So, under this principle, receivers' needs are kept in mind while designing the message. The message could be an office order, a circular, an advertisement, a CEO speech for her employees, a sales letter, etc. But care also has to be taken that consideration does not compromise on the interests of the organization. Another aspect of this principle is that one should also adapt one's language and message content so that the rest of the 6 C's of good business communication are taken care of. So, as per the receiver's needs, the message should be made complete, concise, concrete, clear, courteous, and correct. Following these specific ways, you can indicate you are considerate. Empathize with the speaker. Use concepts and language with which the receiver can relate. Show respect to the sentiments, ideas, notion, concepts, and values of the receiver. Try to put yourself in the position of the receiver and answer the following questions. What are your expectations and needs as a receiver? What is your perception about the issue under discussion as a receiver? What will be your response in the current situation as a receiver? Has the content of the discussion been intellectually and emotionally satisfying, again as a receiver? Answer these questions will help in framing a message that shows consideration for the receiver. Bond with the audience. Focus on we instead of you or I. For example, head of the sales team, instead of saying, in the last quarter, my team has performed very well. But in coming months, you all have to generate even higher targets, so you have to get ready. Instead of the above message, the sales team head should say, in the last quarter, all of us as a team have performed very well. But in coming months, we have to generate even higher targets, so all of us should get ready. Message drafted with a "we" approach will be received well and result in positive response. Be receiver friendly. Messages should be designed keeping the receiver's perspective in mind. While communicating with the receiver, discourteous words or tone should not be used, both in written as well as oral communication, unless the situation specially demands, like in case of a reprimand. For example, a customer approaches the sales outlet complaining about the damaged microwave oven which does not work properly, wanting its replacement. The salesperson says, "The oven has very complicated system and requires careful handling. You must not have read the owner's manual and understood how to operate the oven." Here we can see that even if the intention is not such, this message is humiliating for the customer, which might result in loss of goodwill or legal action on the part of customer against the shop or the brand. The salesperson should have instead said, "We will show it to our engineer and review for any fault and get it repaired. If nothing wrong is found, then our customer care associate will revise with you the operational details of the oven for its smooth functioning." This message will increase the goodwill of the company. Be honest and ethical. Message should indicate honesty in character and integrity in approach. All the details should be collected and presented in a manner that presents a true picture to the receiver. For example, imagine a pharmaceuticals company which has come out with a new medicine which contains a component that might cause reaction in asthmatic patients. If the company wishes to be recognized as an honest and ethical company, it is important to mention possible allergic reactions on the packing to avoid unanticipated illnesses. Fourth principle of communication is concreteness. Communicating with concreteness means being specific, definite, and vivid, rather than vague and general regarding the issue under discussion. Clarity of purpose enhances correctness and specificity. Abstractions or abstract statements can cloud the mind of the sender. The facts and figures presented should be specific. Let's understand this with the help of an example. The sender says, "I expect the order to reach me at the earliest." The above statement is not a concrete statement, as the word earliest is vague. Different people may have different understanding of what earliest means. The sender instead should say, "I expect the order to be delivered to me on 21st of November." Let's take another example. A statement which says, "The student received a high grade in the text" is full of abstract words which do not convey the clear meaning. The concrete message will be, "Neha received an A in the business statistics exam." To compose concrete, convincing messages, we should ask ourselves a few questions. First, is the message to the point? Have you been specific in presentation of issues? What is the goal, the objective of your communication? And has the required facts and figures been added to the message? Fifth principle of communication is clarity. Clarity means designing and getting your message across in such a manner that the receiver understands your message as you intended him to understand. So, for receiver to understand the message clearly, the sender must design the message keeping in mind the background and understanding level of the receiver. In communication, a string of words themselves does not convey meaning. To communicate effectively, a mix of clear concepts and intentions is required. Clarity is required much more in written communication than in oral, because in case of complexity or difficult to understand messages, sender is himself present to explain the issues in oral communication. But in written communication, the sender is not present there. So, there is little scope for you to simplify a message that lacks clarity. Let's understand the concept of clarity with the help of an example. A message lacking clarity. The website of the company is now fully operational with the e-commerce functionality set up. For a layperson, this message will only confuse. So, we should draft the message with clarity in the following manner. The company has launched its website. It's very sweet, short, and very clear message. Here are some specific tips to help make your messages clear. Use easily understandable language as per the ability of the receivers of the message. Finish one theme before starting with another in a write-up or conversation. Include examples, illustrations, and other visual aids when desirable. Sixth principle of communication is courtesy. Communication is an activity of mutual give and take of ideas and information. In business communication, almost everything starts with and ends in courtesy. If you want the receiver to be polite and to listen, you must be willing to extend the same courtesy to the receiver. Courteous messages help to strengthen relations as well as make new relations. Let's understand the principle of courtesy with the help of following examples. For example, while it is easy to say, shut the door, as it uses few words and less energy, the impact of, can you please shut the door, is much greater because this message is more courteous. Another example, a young executive sending a document to his superior may end the mail with the sentence, please feel free to revert to me in case of any problems or queries. The tone in the letter is discourteous and patronizing and not suitable to be used with one's superior. Instead, he should write, please inform if any clarification is required or any modification is needed to be done. To be courteous, communicators should keep in mind the following suggestions. First, be sincerely tactful, thoughtful, and appreciative. This approach will help you in establishing better relationships with the receiver. By handling situations tactfully, you can make strong relationships and make the communication more meaningful. Be respectful. If you want respect from the receiver, you as a sender must take the first step and show respect to the receiver's ideas and communication. Third, use the right tone. Your tone of message can vary with the type of relation you are having with the receiver. Your tone while communicating with superiors, peers, and subordinates should be different. Fourth, omit expressions that irritate, hurt, or belittle. Fifth, grant and apologize good-naturedly if the situations demands. Sixth, courtesy stems from sincere we attitude or you attitude, not I attitude. Seventh principle of communication is correctness. Correctness is understood by the terms of the appropriate choice of words and tone of communicating the message, as well as the correctness of the information. The correctness principle comprises more than proper grammar, punctuation, and spelling. One should use appropriate language and ensure accuracy of facts, figures, and words. Transmission of incorrect information to outsiders will spoil the public image of the company. If the information is not correctly conveyed, the sender will lose credibility. So, any message should not be transmitted unless one is absolutely sure of its correctness. To be correct, communicators should follow these guidelines. Use only correct grammar and appropriate language. Include only accurate facts and figures. Maintain acceptable writing mechanics and standards. And last, choose non-discriminatory expressions. Let's understand this with the help of an interesting example. A statement is, "A truck hit him hardly, leading to a fractured hand." This statement is absolutely wrong because when we use the word hardly, it means rarely. So this statement will mean a truck hit him rarely, leading to a fractured hand, which is not possible. So the correct message should be, a truck hit him hard, leading to a fractured hand. This picture shows the absolute importance of correct grammar in communicating messages. The first statement says, "Let's eat grandma," without any punctuation marks, which means that let's eat up grandma. The correct statement will be, "Let's eat, comma, grandma," which means, "Come on, grandma, let us eat." So we can say in a way that here in this case, punctuations are saving lives. 4 S's of communication are: first, shortness. Sender should avoid very long sentences which can make listening a very painful and boring exercise, resulting in distributed attention of receiver. Sender should try to make each paragraph of just 1 or 2 ideas. Transmission and comprehension of brief message is going to be faster and more effective. Flooding messages with high-sounding words does not create an impact. Second, sincerity. Sender should be sincere while communicating the message. If sender wants to have a genuine and long-lasting impact of message on the audience, he should be serious and sincere while sending the message. And if the sender is genuine, it will be reflected in the manner in which he communicates. Then, strength. The message is strengthened if receivers have full faith in the credibility of the sender. Also, if the sender himself is sure and convinced about his or her own message, then the message will have more impact on the receiver. Fourth, simplicity. Simpler the message, easier for the receiver to understand it. Confusing and difficult words should be avoided to get an effective message from the audience. The most important skill of a communicator is to communicate the most complex things in the most simple words. But this is possible only when the communicator has clarity in thinking. As we can see in this picture, Albert Einstein, one of the greatest physicists this world has produced, stated that if you can't explain it simply, you have not understood it well enough. So we have understood the principles of communication. So now let's see what is their relevance in very brief. For example, completeness increases effectiveness. Conciseness, its relevance is that it saves time. Consideration builds trust. Concreteness reinforces confidence in the sender. Clarity makes comprehension easier by the receiver. Courtesy improves relationships. Correctness builds confidence. Now let's see in very brief the relevance of 4 S's of business communication. Shortness. It economizes on words and time of both the senders and the receivers. Simplicity. It impresses the receivers of the message. Strength. It convinces the receivers that this message has some value. Sincerity. It appeals to the receivers. So students, let's now summarize what we have learned in this module. Communication is the soul of any relationship or business. Communication is effective when it produces the desired action in the audience or the receiver of the message. Effective communication means message is understood and acted upon and not merely sent to the recipient. But for the effective message, communication needs to adhere to some basic principles like completeness, conciseness, consideration, concreteness, clarity, courtesy, correctness. Also, shortness, simplicity, strength, and sincerity. And all these principles help the sender to make message more effective. Thus, sender can have a positive impact on all the stakeholders of the organization, including the employees, the customers, the suppliers, and all the other associates. Thank you.